everyone, welcome back to my channel, and in this video let's do a review of some Lenormand books. So I have two books here for now. We have the Rana George, The Essential Lenormand, this book, and we have the Complete Lenormand Oracle Handbook by Caitlin Matthews, this book. If you're a beginner in the Lenormand system, of course I will highly recommend for you to purchase those books because overall they are very good and beneficial and you should read them. Now, first of all, I will start with Rana George book, and this is actually one of my favorites because it is really simple and easy. So overall, I really like Rana George. I also like her tarot. I also like her Lenormand deck. I will do a review on them. And this book actually was the book that was on my table for a long time. I mean, I worked a lot by this book. So basically you have here, I will just, quickly go through what you have. You have introduction, you have, of course, she's explaining to you how to use Lenormand and her story. Very interesting. And then you have, of course, the meanings of the cards. So, about the meanings. The meanings are actually very nice. And I know we do not have a lot of Lenormand books overall. And any information that you have can always bring benefits to your imagination, to your interpretations, to give you more keys. So basically, she's explaining to you the card, and then she have a very interesting way of explanation of the cards. Here we have the future, what this card is telling to you about the future. She's explaining to you the representation of a man or a woman, physically, how they will look. As you can see, I have like a question mark here. It is a very small interpretation, but sometimes it can help you. As you can see, I have a question mark because it was not solid for me. I mean, it's not always working, but it's fine. We all have, we need to practice to see our own interpretations. So she's telling you how the card will be at work. She's telling you how the card is in love, in health and body and spirit, in money, in timing, advice, orientation, and objects and areas. This is a very decent information. Very decent information for the beginner and for not a beginner overall. I think this is really nice what she done. I absolutely love this, and I think every author should do that. Now, whether you should be religiously follow whatever she is saying, I don't think so, because you need to see for yourself how it is working for you. Because maybe some things will be working for you and maybe some things will not work for you, and which is perfectly fine and normal. Remember, this is esoteric professions. Nothing here is certain other than your own practice, your own experience. But we should really appreciate other authors. We should pay attention to what they are saying, to their practice. We should utilize it in our practice, but also, of course, see for yourself what is working for you and what is not. Also, I will suggest for all the people out there to even bring more interpretation. For instance, if you have this card in love, so you can take a notebook and add more of interpretations to the love section. Like, what do you think this card will mean? So this is how she's giving to you the interpretation, which I think is perfectly good and beneficial. Now, after the interpretations, we have, of course, some spreads. We have reading techniques and spreads. And again, this is a very beneficial information. You should read this. So she's giving you this box spread, and you have the grand tableau. Of course, you need to, like, purchase the book to see what is in. We have the cross spread, which I really like. What else? A lot of information about the grand tableau, by the way. And basically that's it. So I will have to say, this book is very beneficial for the beginner and for the not beginner. As I told you, I worked a lot with this book. I think this book is really giving you a skeleton of information, and then you will need to work your way up with the Lenormand. Now, as I told you, don't be a fanatic. Rana George is giving you a lot of information, a lot of beneficial information from her practice, from her years of practicing this system, but still you don't need to be a fanatic. And also she's saying to you in the book, like, you need to have your own ways also, of course. And this is why I really like this book. This is not a fanatic book. It's not an author that is saying to you that this is the ultimate correct way and this is how it's supposed to be and that's it. I think Rana George is very open-minded. Her book is very pleasant and beneficial. It's not one to trap you in some of one way of thinking. So this is why I really like this book. So I really recommend this book to everyone, of course. And you will see when you will have this book, will be your working book. You will always come back to here. But again, remember, this is not the absolute information. Of course, you need more books and you need to have more practice to have an overall understanding of the Lenormand system. So now let's go to another book, which is the complete Oracle Handbook, Reading the Language and Symbols of the Cards by Caitlin Matthews. This is a very interesting book. I also will say that in my practice, that book was the first one that I purchased, and then I purchased the Rana George book. In my practice, the Caitlin Matthews was the first book that I had. I mean, before the Rana George book. So that book is also very beneficial, but it's a bit complicated. I did not really like this book. Now, I'm not saying it's not a good book. This book is really good. It's beneficial. It has lots of information, but for me it was a bit difficult to understand some things, because I read this book when I wanted to have a system of my own, and it was like a bit difficult for me. So I will show to you how she is giving to you the interpretations. Why it's so dark? Well, never mind. So you have here the card, for instance, the bouquet. She's telling you that this is the Queen of Spades. This is the general interpretation of the card. Then you have effect. Then you have the nouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs. And you also have representation of people, timing, Lenormand universe, and combinations. This information is nice, but I think it can be a bit difficult, misleading for the beginner. I mean, it's nice to present to the beginner this information, but overall it can complicate things, and a beginner's mind is not very flexible. It always likes to grasp to some information and to be stuck on. So sometimes this book can be a bit difficult. She does not have like a lot also of information about the card itself. I mean, the interpretations. It's very, very basic. And also these combinations, if you're giving combinations, so give combinations to each of the card, like 36 of the combinations. Why we need to have like small example? But again, you know, whatever. It's not something that we are deciding on. So she has these interpretations, and then she has very nice information here. Of course, she's also explaining to you about the playing cards, which is really nice. But again, for the beginner mind, it can be complicated, it can be difficult, and like some of the information here is just too much. You know what, I will say that this is not a book for beginners because it is a bit complicated. I like this book, it can give you a lot of information. You should read this, of course. You should look at this information, but from a very light point of view. Do not stick to that. Do not like think that this is the only interpretations of the cards and that's it. Again, this is a skeleton of information, and you need to expand more. We have the Grand Tableau, of course. As I think also some spreads. So this book was a bit complicated for me. Personally, I did not like this book. I worked with this book, but it was a bit difficult for me. This is definitely not for beginners. If you're a beginner, I will suggest for you to purchase the Rana George book first, and then purchase the Caitlin Matthews book. Then it will be easier. Then this book will not be complicated so much. And also, do not worship the information that is here. You should take the information, appreciate the information, but do not be a fanatic and do not think that this is the only way. Also, the information with the playing cards, it also can be infinite. Some people can say, for instance, that the hearts are water. Some people can say that the hearts are fire. You see, there is no concrete information. Again, why? Because this is esoteric world. This is not accurate science. We do not have a system or some information that we can rely on strongly. Of course, you can do the system in your mind. You can choose for yourself that hearts are water, like it does not matter, whatever you want. You can choose that in your mind, but again, be more open-minded. When you will be more open-minded, the information will flow easily. So those are really good books. Again, I'm not saying that they are not beneficial. Of course they are, especially the Rana George book. But in my practice, I will suggest for you to first, if you're a beginner and you don't know anything about this world, first purchase this book, and then, first read this book and then read this book. Now, I have another book, but it's not in English. This is a book in Russian language. This is a very small book, as you can see, but this is like a staple in the Russian community. This is by Anna Kotelnikova, and it is a very beneficial book. I'm not saying that this book is like the best. I'm not saying that this is the ultimate information, not at all. I mean, you can get it only if you're a Russian speaking person, of course, but also there are like some information here that I will not really stick on that in a, in a phonetic way, but this is a very beneficial book. She has here a very strange, sometimes interpretations. I mean, not strange, but it can be confusing to the beginner. She took one card and she gave it all the 36 combinations. For instance, this is the child, what the child is meaning with the rider, with the clover, with the sheep, with the home, with the house, with the tree, and etc. And it's very brief, it's not like it can give you a lot of understanding. Again, this exercise you can do for yourself, and I think it will be more beneficial when you're taking one card and then the other, and you're going to write the meaning of the card. What do you think it will mean for you? For instance, the child with the rider, what it will be for you. As a beginner, beginners always like trapped into what the author is saying, and I'm suggesting for you to have your own interpretation, to read the books, but again, have your own practice. So she has also here some spreads, which are very interesting, by the way. They are very beneficial. Of course, I use a lot of her spreads, and they are basically a staple in my work. I really like them. Here we have the horseshoe, which I have on my channel, and people probably do not understand from where I got this. I got it from this book because it's like very known. And basically she has also the grand tableau here and some more information. Very good book, very small but very beneficial. Again, not too stuck on that book. I don't know if you have this in English, I have no idea, but this is like the information that I have. You see, the books that I have. And more information that I received about the Lenormand system is from actually the playing cards. You also need to dive deep to playing cards to understand the Lenormand. You will do that after you will have some practice, of course. First of all, stick to the basics. So basically that's it. I want to remind you to follow me on Instagram on magicalkey666, and you can ask me questions on Instagram or here at the comments.